Welcome everybody to our Cupid video series. I'm Practice Director Andy Oberle here with a couple of our Cupid expert extraordinaires, Blake and Carl. You guys want to give a little brief introduction about yourselves?
Sure. I'm Carl Swift. I'm a senior consultant and on-site lead with Nordic Consulting. I have been involved in Cupid consulting for about 6 years now. Previously consulting under the Cardiant application, previous name to Cupid, but excited to be here today.
Excellent.
Absolutely. I'm Blake Dilworth. I've been a senior consultant with Nordic for about 6 months. Previously, I worked at Epic, specializing in Radiant and Cupid implementation.
Excellent. Nice to meet you guys. Let's talk about, let's compare Cupid to some other clinical applications. So whether it's a Beaker, a Beacon, an Optime, whatever it may be, what sets Cupid apart from these other clinical applications? And we're not saying it's the best out there. You two might argue that. That's up to you. But what sets it apart from some of these other clinical apps?
Sure. Looking at the non-invasive side, one thing that is unique to Cupid and Radiant, Cupid shares it with Radiant, is the Tech Navigator beginning and exam from a functionality perspective. Really allows time stamping of particular events, the advancing of a procedural status, so you can track that throughout the system as well as on the patient's case. And from the invasive side, definitely the procedure log really is one of the key functionality pieces that separates it from like an Optime and the ORs, where they're going to be more navigator-based and OpNote-based as opposed to the procedure log as well as structured reporting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one thing which is similar veins of the radiology areas with Radiant is just the extent that you interact with third-party applications, whether it be a hemodynamic monitoring application within the invasive areas to monitor vital information, or if it's a PAC storing the images for those non-invasive procedures as well as the invasive procedures. I think there's a lot that come into play when thinking about how does the two third parties, or however many third parties you're dealing with, interact with the Cupid module itself, which I think you don't really see in the inpatient world. You might have device integration at the bedside, but you're not one of your core tenants isn't revolving around a third-party application.
Excellent. Let's ask a really difficult question for you guys now. The application formerly known as Cardiant, we're talking Cupid now, was going to be called Thumper. Give me your thoughts on the name change, how it evolved from Cardiant to Cupid. Could have been Thumper, totally different from the C going that route.
Well, I mean, being a staffed and certified Cardiant man myself, I'm a bit partial to that name. Cupid seemed a little bit Valentine's Day to me, but I could have gotten behind Thumper, honestly. That little rabbit that liked to
Yeah, I was a big fan of Thumper and Bambi. I believe it was the movie, but I think Cupid is a good playful name. I think one of the challenges you have coming up with a name is that Cardiant you sort of get the connotation that it's just radiant, and for the cardiology areas, right? Radiant, Cardiant.
Yeah.
So I think you sort of had to get something out of the box, which Thumper may have been a little bit more creative, but Cupid works as well.
So Cupid, the Hallmark side, won over the Bambi side. All right. Give me some common stumbling blocks, some gotchas when clients are looking to install Cupid. Things you've seen where, oh man, if we would have known this ahead of time. Give me a top 2 or top 3, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I can certainly lay out a couple for you, and Carl can pick up. I think that one of the biggest pitfalls that I've experienced in my previous clients is that Cupid gets added to scope late. It's either assumed that you're going to remain in third parties, and only once the executive level becomes a little bit more aware around how data is stored in Epic and what a great benefit it is to have a longitudinal patient record across the organization and across your entities, however many hospital organizations you may have, that it really becomes apparent that you need Cupid in the cardiology areas. And once you stumble behind on the rest of the project, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to wind up falling into the holes of picking up tools that others have developed that your cardiology users don't enjoy, haven't given their input for, and so really just feel like they are out of touch.
You're saying the cardiologists want to get in there, get their input. They don't want to take what was given for other folks.
Absolutely. The cardiology areas are extremely specialized, so dealing with flow sheet rows or structured reporting and things that has either been developed by somebody else or is simply being taken at foundation because it worked for everyone else. It can definitely lead to some dissatisfied end users.
One of the things I would say is a big stumbling block is, as we mentioned before, is Cupid interacts with a lot of third-party applications.
Right.
So if you don't identify one of those third-party applications, whether it be a PAX or potentially maybe a site is planning on upgrading their PAX a month before going live, but doesn't think to share it with the Epic implementation team or the Cupid implementation team for that fact, you're going to run into a lot of challenges, because a lot of things are built on the premise that you're going to have a certain third-party footprint or architecture between these third parties, and if you throw one into the mix a month before go live, you're going to run into a lot of problems, and user I think things that you're going to run into just in general, a lot of problems, unhappiness being one of them.
And so that gets to, on the Cupid side of things, you all are going to be working fairly closely with the interfaces team, making sure all those are set up correctly with all the different third-party systems you might see.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
And then, Blake, back to your point, that was kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier during that role playing. I'm the CIO, tell me why I should do Cupid along with all the other applications in the enterprise. That's a common pitfall of clients adding on later on. Okay,
Absolutely.
excellent.